Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live Gamedev. What do we call it? Mood lighting. Mood lighting. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour out of the end of our week, and we hang out with some of our developers here at Cloud Imperium Games. We answer questions, we chat about the best version of Hello, and sometimes we dip into the workflow, and we see a little bit about how they work. That's what we're doing this week in our Game Dev show. Let me bring our guests in here. We have got Chris and Zach from the CIG lighting team. How you guys doing?
Hello, doing well. How about yourself?
I'm back. I had a week of vacation last week, and it was delightful. I actually forgot about work for at least several hours over the course of a week. It was wonderful. It was delightful. But I'm back, and we're here at work, and we are talking lighting today. So before we get into it, because every show is somebody's first show, and Zach, I know this is your first show, let's take a minute or two to introduce yourselves to the community, tell them who you are, what you do. Chris, we'll start with you. Who are you? What do you do? And what's your favorite sandwich?
I'm Chris Campbell. I'm the lead lighting artist for the PU. And my favorite sandwich, I'm going to be controversial and say I don't really like sandwiches that much, but I don't know, a BLT is pretty good.
How do you not like sandwiches?
I guess it depends on how you define a sandwich, and we could get into that. But
I was going to say the same thing. Not a sandwich fan, so maybe it's something to do with being a lighting artist and hating sandwiches. But I'm Zach, and I'm a junior lighting artist for Star Citizen, and I hate sandwiches.
The correct answer is a Monte Cristo, by the way. A Monte Cristo from Club 33 at Disneyland is the correct answer.
All
right.
There's a Monte Cristo.
So you are lighting artists, and what does a lighting artist do? Not necessarily in game development at CIG. What do we do?
a lighting artist, it's fairly self-explanatory. It's in the title, but it's basically taking the environment that gets made by the environment artists and level designers, and adding lighting to it in a way that represents the art director's visual target for the game, while also keeping in mind things like performance constraints, technical restraints, and also some gameplay considerations like leading the player, making sure that they have good visibility where we want them to have good visibility, that they know where they need to go if it's something like a linear level design or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And today on the show, we are doing a game dev stream where we're going to showcase some aspect of your process. What are we doing today?
Yeah, so today we're going to show kind of the process of how we are relighting some of the habs around the PU. You may have noticed in Horizon, currently on the PTU, we have added, we've got new habs there, and we've added a button by the door, which allows you can push it and basically turn down the lights. I hesitate to say turning off the lights because obviously there is still lighting there. But you basically put the hab into a state of like a chill nighttime, either relaxation or sleep kind of state. What we're going to do is show how we do that process, and kind of our thoughts behind why we're picking certain moods or make certain decisions while doing that. And it's something that we're doing right now. So this is like real-time game dev.
Sure. Yeah, as I said, this is actually tasks that you are working on at present in the game. So we're not creating any special work or anything for today. You're actually you have to do this. And I'm like, can we watch it for an hour? And you're like, sure. So
this is literally what we're doing this week.
All right. So we've got the screen share up. Zach,
Cool.
Why don't you take us through it?
Yeah, sure. So this is Horizon, and this is one of the switches that we've used to change the lighting.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So thanks, everybody. Remember that we'll be back next week with more. All right, so explain to me your tasks. What do you actually have to do? Because these things are already lit, obviously. So
Mhm.
why are
Yep.
we going back? Why are we revisiting?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. I mean, as you say, we're not reinventing the habs. We're not like changing them completely. But we've always had a kind of a desire to add more player interactivity. From a lighting perspective, I mean, you've already got some things that you can interact with in your habs, and we wanted to add to that through lighting. So the obvious way to do that is we've already got these tools called light groups, which allow us to basically change the state of a light based on whatever kind of logic. And traditionally that's mostly been in the ships, like when you take damage or when you're powering up the ship for the first time. There's like a low power state and a full powered state and an emergency state. Um, and we've been, over the course of the last year or so, introducing some of those elements into locations where we feel it makes sense and where we can get the most bang for buck. And yeah, the next kind of obvious thing was to do it in the habs, where we recently got some new kind of gameplay entities that allow us to tie the light group into a switch, which is player interactable, so the player himself or herself can manually change the light state.
All right, so we're going back through all of the existing habs and adding multiple lighting states. And now
Yeah,
you mentioned the
exactly.
ships. The ships have like normal operation and then emergency or low power or whatever. What lighting states
Yeah.
are we talking about for habitations?
I mean, so for the time being, for habitations, it's just going to be a low power state and a full powered state. Um, yeah, we're not adding too much complexity to it at the moment. We just want to get something in, kind of as a proof of concept, and then see where we can expand it, where it makes sense to expand it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
no red alerts. No. Switch the hab to red
No,
alert.
not yet. I mean, maybe in the future you could be cooking something and then the fire alarm goes off and the whole hab changes.
What about
But
like a sexy time entertaining?
well, I mean, some of these low powered states are very, very sensual.
And we're already off track. All right. So, Zach, we've been bouncing through the hab now for a few minutes. Take it away. Where do we start?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess one of the first things we could show is the lights themselves. And right here, we have a kind of default state, auxiliary state, emergency state. And so the first thing we'll do is go through for our kind of default state and set everything the way that we want it. And then if you're really prepared in that process, you kind of set some auxiliary values, but normally we don't. So as soon as you switch to an auxiliary state, it looks horrible. And so you have to go back through and tweak all the auxiliary, kind of define like what your low power state is going to be. And there's also ways in which you control how that transition happens. So if you notice, the lights don't just kind of immediately switch from the default state to the auxiliary state. There's a bit of a transition, and I did this one, so it's not the most interesting. But there are some others where different lights kind of transition at different times, and you get a bit of like a different lights across the room. This is the Nubab Hab, and we can have a look at the Lawville one as well. Bit of a slower one with some stuff that like flickers on towards the end.
Yeah, this one's
So we,
nice and dramatic.
Need like an air purifier in here.
yeah,
Crap
Yeah.
floating in the air. Now this
look at that.
transition, you're continuously transitioning between two modes. You're flying around in free fly, and then you're transitioning into another mode to do this. What is this mode that you're transitioning into?
We have a little hotkey Control G that kind of spawns you a character and just gives you the kind of interactions that you'd expect to have as a character. So it's just a quick way to kind of verify how this interaction feels and how these characters are kind of receiving light in these spaces. there are other ways that we can like look at that. We have a client that we can run where you can actually have your own kind of version of a server on your PC and do the whole process, spawn in a hab, move around, visit the entire kind of PU. But this is just a quick way of doing it in the editor for these smaller spaces.
Gotcha.
And it looks a bit nauseating when you go, whoa.
Yeah, that's why I was like, we've seen it a couple of times, and I'm like, we should probably explain what that thing is that we're seeing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that nauseousness is when you jump into game mode. I think it's some bug which will no doubt be fixed. But yeah, I mean, as Zach was saying, like the benefit of being able to jump in game like this is that, we're trying to make the environment look good, but in the actual game itself, there's a lot of characters running around, and so we also have to verify that the player character looks good, and by doing that, we also make sure that any other NPCs or AI can theoretically also, look their best under the same lighting circumstances. So that's something we always keeping in mind when we light environments.
Cool. So we can take a look at a few more if that's interesting, or we can just kind of like jump in and have a crack at one.
Yeah, well, let's jump in and see what your task is, what you're actually trying to do here. We've seen these habs before.
So this is Area 18, and just this week I've done kind of auxiliary setup for this hab. And we thought today we'd do kind of a completely different alternate universe, what Area 18 habs could have looked like, just to show you kind of the impact that the lighting can have. And then this is our neon kind of downtown inspired Area 18.
Always love some pink lighting.
See, we're halfway to the sexy time lighting I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So we're going to do an alternate state for this one. That's the plan, and show a little bit of that process. And it sounds like we're going to make it sexy time, by the sounds of it.
Let's do a shag pad.
Yeah.
Right, you got it. So the first step is kind of defining like what lights are we going to keep on, what lights are we going to turn off, and I can also show you the horrifying thing that we're faced with before we've set up any auxiliary lighting, where everything's just default values.
So is this every light in the room just turned to 100?
It's just 1 and white. Every light turned to 1 and everything white. And
yeah, that's kind of the starting point by default.
Interesting.
You can see that here. And Chris, I don't know what you normally do, but my lazy method is to kind of select most of them and turn them off in the auxiliary state, and then bring back the ones that I like.
Yeah, I think that's usually the easiest way. I think it's easier to start from black than it is from this horrible white nightmare that we find ourselves in.
So now we should everything except these cube maps, which I think you went over in your last kind of lighting stream, but they're essentially the kind of ambient lighting solution. They take a little snapshot on all 6 sides of the lighting in the space and reproject it out. So instead of just having complete darkness in the areas that aren't being hit by direct lighting, you get a bit of ambient lighting and the correct kind of reflections that should be there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
I think we've lost a host.
No.
That's all right. We'll just go through it.
I was changing my lighting to match your sexy time lighting.
Oh, hell yeah.
There you go.
See,
Nice.
I got the same look. It's like we're in the same place.
Cool. So I think if we're going sexy time, we should probably keep all these pink ones, because that's what's giving us that that vibe. So we can either go for the same values that we have in the default state, so the other lights will kind of fade out around them and these ones will stay consistent.
So
Or we
we'll
can
start
really...
with the pink lighting and then add on top of it.
So what, you just selected a bunch of
Yeah.
lights?
So for these lights here, we have like a couple of different light types. Because they're longer strip lights, I'm using these ones that are in the engine. They're called planar, and they represent like kind of rectangle of light and emits out from there. And then I also have these little lights here, which are linked to these fixtures that control the glow. So that controls the brightness of the glow and the color of the glow. So I'm just grabbing all of those and copying over the values that they have in the default state to the auxiliary state, so they're the same between both. Just riveting.
We need the lighting team to go over to Jared's apartment. I'm not in my apartment. I'm in the studio. I'm in the studio. This is the LA studio. I'm back in the office.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. Like we spend so much time lighting these like 3D environments, but the lighting in my apartment is very uninspiring by comparison.
Forgot to make them pink.
Classic.
We need to decide what we're going to do about these sexy Horizon bulbs as well that I've brought in. We can keep them blue or make them pink. I want you to chip in, Jared, and give a bit of a stand-in for our art director.
Sure. We'll put the question to the chat. What do you wanting to know?
What should the alternate color be? So looks like our primary like key light color is going to be this pink. That's going to define like the overall mood for the room, and then we've got these accent lights up in the ceiling and spotlights and stuff. And we need a color for that that's going to work.
Well, it can't be pink. The other ones are already pink, people. You can't just put pink and pink and pink and pink. Let's go.
You can. You'll get a very pink room, but
yeah, let's go with purple.
Purple.
Purple?
So like a deeper kind of purple. Yeah, that could work. So now that you're working in the alternate light state, Zach, if you just mention how you do that. Like in game, we can obviously flick the switch, but then as soon as you jump out of game, it goes back to the default light state.
Yep. So, oh god. The way that kind of switch works is that it's hooked up to one of these light groups, which is something that in theory should be in every kind of what we call object container or area, like a hab or a hab floor. And within this, you can set how you want. So, for example, like Horizon, we have the day-night states where it switches from we switch on all those kind of lights in the garden on the trees at nighttime. So one of the things we can do from this light group is set to be affected by day-night and set which of those states, auxiliary, default, or emergency, we want to switch to. And then the engine, when the kind of sun reaches about the horizon level on a planet, it will switch between them. And so I'm just manually in here switching between these states so I can see whilst I'm working what we're going to have. And then once we've established those two different states is when we'll probably go back and do the transition and how those lights are going to kind of flick on or fade off. And that's the tricky bit.
Yeah.
So Jared, hopefully you can answer my question, how long do we expect 314 to go live? When it's ready. The answer to that question is always the same, Pedro. When we think it's ready.
Oh crap, we wanted purple, not blue. I'm doing blue.
Let's make it a little bit more. There we go.
Oof. Is that too pink?
I think, what is purple somewhere like 270 on the hue spectrum, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in there maybe.
That's quite a pinky purple.
Yeah, I think it's because of the glow on the actual bulb itself. So like
Ah,
as
yeah.
obviously as something gets brighter, as we put more light into it, the brighter the glow is, and the more it turns towards like a white. And sometimes that can make it difficult to pick an exact color. Like usually if you've got like a concept art piece, the concept artist can always make it exactly the color they want just by picking a brush color, and that's what they paint.
Color is
But
always
translating that into 3D takes a little bit more finesse.
color is always an annoying conversation because in video, we use RGB, red, blue, green. A zero value is black. The absence of color is black, and the addition of all colors is how you get white. But in print, they use CYMK, where it's the exact opposite, where the absence of color is white, and the addition of all colors is black. And it's always just it's one of those weird Mark Skelton deep thoughts thing where you're like how is one the absence of color? How is white the absence of color in one, and black is the absence of color in another? And then
how do you have these two polar opposite systems existing at the
and
same time?
then how do they both manage to be crayons? If in either situation one is the absence of color, how do they both manage to be crayons and both be counted as a color? And then what's transparent? Where does transparent fit into all that? And then you figure out they can make a transparent crayon too. They got those little clear wax crayons that they use for like Easter egg coloring kits. So at that point, you just need to sit down and take a break.
Step back.
Yeah. Shout out to Mark Skelton if you're out there. Deep thoughts. No, it wasn't called Deep Thoughts. It was called Hazy Thoughts, wasn't it? I don't remember. So somebody in the chat will remember. I'm throwing back to like 2013 stuff here. Go ahead.
One of the other things we always try and think about is like these walkways or kind of made. What is it that we call them? I forget.
A critical path.
Critical path.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So like any kind of doorways or spaces that you're supposed to interact with, you kind of need to see what you're doing and where you're going. So, do I not have a door light?
Yeah, so even though it's like an MMO with like so much space that you can go around to, there's always, especially in locations like this, areas where we know that the player is always going to be going through, always transitioning through. And that's where we generally focus either the highest quality of the lighting. So we spend more, we pay for shadows if that's what needs to be there to make it look good. Put more area lights there, that kind of stuff.
I like that phrase, pay for shadows. Talk to me about paying for shadows.
Well, everything has a cost. There's no free lunch in lighting. So I mean like I don't think I even can get too technical into it because I don't really know, but like every light has the option of being a shadow casting light. And in computer graphics, like shadows are generally extremely expensive. One of the more expensive parts of rendering a scene. And so whenever we use shadows, we have to keep in mind how many shadows we're using. The more that you have on the scene at one given time, it can kind of exponentially get more expensive, and adds a cost both to the GPU in terms of like actually rendering the shadows themselves, and then also a cost on the CPU for all the additional draw calls that get introduced by the CPU trying to calculate how many extra shadows have to be computed.
Right, the lighting budget, if you would.
Yeah, exactly. The overall lighting budget.
Every location doesn't have the same budget, though. But like, how do you do you determine that? Is that something the art director determines? How do you determine like what your budget is for a particular location?
I mean, like we generally get kind of guidelines from the graphics department. Again, mostly because lighting is almost purely a graphics side of the equation. So the graphics department gives us kind of a set of budgets to stick within, and that's like the number of overlapping shadows that you can have on screen at any given moment, like 2 shadow casting lights next to each other. How many lights in general make up the overall scene that you can render on screen at one moment, and stuff like that. And so we basically just have to stay within those boundaries, and then we have to allow for a certain amount of overhead for unknown light sources, basically,
Right.
because again, this is like
Glow
a big
sticks,
multiplayer game.
flashlights,
Glow
explosions,
sticks,
stuff like
flashlights, ships, all of these things can, depending on the location, can be introduced to the location, and then that just adds on top of that budget.
And I imagine the size, shape, layout, and everything of the location matters too, because it's what you can hide behind a wall. The layout of the place, what you can see at any given time, would determine what can be hidden and unloaded from the computer. So
Yeah.
it's like something like an underground facility with a lot of twists and turns and hallways and whatnot probably frees you up to do a lot more. But something like Horizon, where it's sitting out and open and you can see one end of the city from the other, that's got to be a hell of a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like these kind of examples, like we generally love working on hubs and shops and stuff like that, because they're not only they're very self-contained, so you can do a lot, but as you say, because they're very confined environments within like a culling volume, we can spend a lot more lighting budget, really making it look as good as we envisage it. Whereas something like Horizon and outdoor environments in general, there's a lot more variables at play that always have to be rebalanced. So when it comes to lighting somewhere like Horizon, there's just a constant process of iterating. You make a bunch of changes, those get populated because there's so many different like platforms which are duplicates of each other. So if you add one light, you could end up adding 500 lights to the overall scene of Horizon. And then we have to balance using our various optimization methods to keep our numbers within a certain range.
Yeah. Bedslayer and a couple other folks in chat have been asking about ray trace lighting. That's actually a question for the graphics team. Bedslayer. These are the lighting artists are the ones that use the tools that are provided to them and stuff. And actually, like it's like you're asking a question about whether we'll get better or different brushes. These are the guys that use the brushes to paint the picture. So that's really a question for our graphics team. I don't have any answer for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That wasn't my best analogy, but I think it worked.
It works. It works.
Back to the lighting budget thing and the performance cost stuff. Have there been moments where you have something and it looks just the way you want it, and you're like so happy with it, like this is perfect, and then somebody has to come back to you and be like, you're 50 entities over your budget, and it's like you've got to bring it back, and how do you process that?
Well, I mean, it can happen, absolutely, and it's always pretty devastating, because it's like you got to hack away at your baby, take off some limbs, and hope that it still is pretty. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that's just the cost of things. Like it all comes down to weighing up like where we want the budgets to go. So I mean, like, in a small environment like this, where there's not much VFX, for example, if we wanted to, or if there was a decision made, you could push some more of the lighting budget in towards the VFX budget because they're not using it. I mean, the ultimate goal is always to get like a certain frame rate, and every department has their own little budgets to fit within that. But if some departments don't exist in a location, then yeah, we can just kind of creep in there a little bit.
Yeah. Well, they say that adversity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Many of you see, being able to do anything you want is not always a recipe for success. Famously, when George Lucas struggled to make the movies he wanted, you got Star Wars, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. And when he had the power and the wealth and the resources to do anything he wanted, we got Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. So adversity can be a good thing a lot of times. But
Yeah, definitely.
how many battles do you have with the VFX team? If I got Mike Snowden in here for a while, would he have a bone to pick with you guys?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm on good speaking terms with Mike. At least as far as I know, he may feel differently. But no, we work like on Origin as well. For example, we work quite closely with the VFX team on some of the volumetric particles that they were adding onto the industrial platform. There was I think there was some improvements to the way that particles are lit, and how they receive light and cast shadows that was added a little while ago. And so there was a bunch of VFX added to the industrial platform, and so we had to work kind of together to make sure that their VFX looks really good, and also that we kind of show off, how nicely like the shadows cast through, and how that we couldn't really do that before.
So where are we at, Zach? What's been going on?
We've got our kind of like our bulbs in here, our nice, sexy bulbs, and
Looking
I've
very
done a
purple.
little bit of work. Yeah, I don't know. Very pink and purple. We've got, of course, if this is some sort of love den, then the bed is going to be quite important.
It's a little
so
small.
It would be tricky, wouldn't it? It would be a
Yeah.
bit tricky.
If you could quickly model out like a heart-shaped bed with like a nice leopard print cover, I think that would go a long way
Absolutely. Just a second.
on like a rotating platform.
These teddy bears, they're not in. I saw one in Lorville as well. Are they in some of the older hubs, but not in the new ones?
It's a good question. That would come
You
down
don't
to
know, I thought-
whoever dressed it. The teddy
But
bear
you-
is it's a much beloved asset by the environment team.
Understandably.
Yeah,
Well, the props team at least.
the props team. Sorry, yes.
Well, the props team is on the environment team. It's. But
There's
I'm
a lot
pretty
of
sure
crossover.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the props team that's been dropping those in there. That's all.
So we could probably. I mean, I don't know how far you want to take this. We could move on to the stage of. There would be a lot further that we would take this, and a lot of the kind of detail lightings in the shelves and cupboards I haven't done, but that stuff does take quite a lot of time. So we could keep going, or we could jump into the kind of transition phases with these lights.
Let's go into the transitions. Let's see that. I've redone mine, and mine took way less time than yours did. So I mean, I
I
don't.
bet yours is ray trace as
I
well.
don't want to. Yeah, mine's got ray tracing, and I don't have a shadow
Limited
budget,
rays.
so I mean, I don't want to tell you your job here, Zach, but I mean, it didn't take me much time to do this at all.
Damn.
Shots fired.
Yeah, I'm hurt. Okay, so the transitions is where it gets a tiny bit more complicated. The way that these light groups appear when you first kind of drop them in, the things that I mentioned at the beginning that kind of handle the transitions for the lights, is that they just look like this. And then you have to add within them these different kind of transitions. And the way that you distinguish between them is with these styles. and we have some kind of like setup levels that show all of these. There are some that flicker, and there are some that fade, and there are some that take longer, and some that happen much quicker. And we'll kind of jump back and forth between that setup level, see what kind of transitions are going on, grab the code for the one we want and put it in here. And then you also establish how long you want the total transition to take, and you give a couple of different offsets. So if you wanted a bunch of different lights to have the same transition but happen at slightly different times, you'd use these kind of offset values to trigger them at different points. When it works, that's how it happens.
Yeah, when it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a like it's a lot to wrap your mind around when you're working on it, but it's actually quite a powerful tool, which gives us a lot of freedom to kind of create these transitions in various different styles, or you can get quite creative with them.
So within each of the individual lights has this section here for each state that says preset tag. You define the tag that you want for any given transition. So like seek reverse, sequence reverse, flicker 1, flicker 2, and then you punch that into the light, and you also punch in that ID for the offset you want, and you do that for every light, basically.
You have to do it for each light?
You do have to do it for each light. But it does mean that you have a very, like Chris was kind of saying, you have a very fine control, and it's quite powerful in terms of if you have a vision for exactly what you want to do and you know how to do it, you can get some quite interesting, complex transitions. Not that I can do that right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of iteration time, figuring out what feels natural. It's a balance between like what feels natural for how lights would behave, what type of light it is, if it's like a compact fluorescent which like slowly flickers before the power kind of comes on, something incandescent where it has to burn for a little while before it reaches its full brightness, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it takes a bit of iteration to go back and forth, and you test the animation, that you test the transition, you see if it feels right, you find what elements don't feel quite right, and you go and you tweak them a little bit.
This hab looks so sterile after looking at our shack guide for so long.
I'm just cheating there and grabbing the values that I'd already used, so I don't choke in the moment and completely mess it up.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a cooking show. Here's one I prepared earlier.
Yeah.
Kind of workflow.
Yeah, we always have to make this disclaimer, make this reminder that there is almost nothing in game development that can be finished in an hour. Every time we do one of these demonstration streams, we are showing a very truncated version of the process. Either you are going through the process itself very truncated, or there have been hours of prep and setting things up before the live stream. So it's we always appreciate the time that you guys put into this. But I love these shows because nobody else does these shows. You'll never see EA, hanging out with lighting artists or props artists and showing how they make a box and stuff like that. You'll never see, Activision doing this stuff. My first criteria, people often ask, like, how do you determine what you're going to do on the shows and whatever? Like most things, multiple reasons, but one of them is always, would any other game studio do this? And if the answer is no, I'm instantly interested. It's like I absolutely consider this if nobody else will do it. Because I don't want to get off on a rant here, but it's one of the things that makes my job worth doing is highlighting as many aspects of game development as possible, is combating this notion that games are made by one person. It's like when you watch, what was that last game that Kojima made, the Death Stranding? It's like Kojima, it's like, that is a Hideo Kojima game, and his name is on everything, and I'm sure he did a lot, but there were also 100 other people who spent years making that game, and I like to give everybody at least their 1 hour to shine. People are like, why did you do a show with the IT people? What? So I'm like, because you think we could do any of this without the IT people?
Yeah,
You
they're
think
part
they're
of the
not
process.
absolutely essential to the game development process?
Yeah,
You give them 1 hour.
the unsung heroes.
That's the point. That's the
Yeah.
point. I see this show. If people are like, if people are ever wondering what the purpose of this show is, the one on Friday, it's about the unsung stuff. It's my chance to show a light, no pun intended, to show a light on the aspects of game development that never get shown anywhere else.
Yeah.
Does that mean we're not the glamorous front cover devs? We're the unsung ones?
With the glossy, not the glossy print.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's devastating.
not at 23. Maybe when you get older. But
Yeah. I mean, like that's one of the, for me, that's one of the nice things about this kind of open game development that we're doing is being able to show the process live and showing stuff at how we work and how we do it. I think is, I mean, for me, it's quite interesting. Obviously, as a game developer, I'm interested in game development, so I think it's quite fun to show the community this stuff, and hopefully also interesting to people.
Oh yeah, no, it's people have meaned me a little bit for ending every ISC with what did we learn this week, but it's I do it for a couple. Like I said, most things you do it for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons I
Sure.
do it is because somebody who meant a lot for me and got me my start in this industry used to say that, so it's my tribute to them. But second is that I want to always remind people that the purpose of this stuff is education. It's not. It's sometimes this stuff dips into marketing and stuff like this. I work for a marketing department. It's absolutely true. There's a marketing element to it, but I always try to come at it from an education standpoint. That's where my passion is. I used to be a teacher way back when. So.
What did you teach?
I taught high school drama.
All right.
Nice.
I taught at a performing arts high school, actually. You ever seen that High School Musical show? I taught at the high school that was the basis of that show.
Oh, really?
So it was a performing arts high school where kids actually did break out into song and dance in the hallways.
Is there a character based on you?
No. High School Musical had already been out by when I don't know. I don't know if it had already been out. I don't know. I've never seen High School Musical. I just know it's based on that school.
Okay.
I will admit, I really like the pink and gold that you started out with, though, and so did the chat. Like when we first started the screen share, like chat was like, "We need this. Put this in the game." Oh, this one's more gold than pink right now, but
What you had
at the beginning,
pink lights are off.
yeah, what you had at the beginning that was that nice mix of pink and gold, looked really cool.
I butchered it so I could show the transitions, because all of the interesting lights I already had on in the default. So we can bring them back, but then we don't get our transitions. So
I like that transition, how they turn on, in the direction coming towards the camera. I think that feels really cool.
White Sky Mage. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
No, you go.
I was going off topic. White Sky Mage says, like, I'm so bad at improv in school, but now I'm role playing in D&D. And they asked if we play D&D. Do you guys play D&D?
I have unfortunately never played D&D. I hear great things.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard from a lot of people that it's a lot of fun, but I've never had the opportunity.
The answer is yes, I play D&D. In fact, I host a D&D live stream on my personal Twitch channel every 2 weeks. There's a game tonight, actually. I'm not here to promote it, so I won't tell you where the channel is or what time. But yes.
I've also never played it in the club of sandwich haters and sacrilegious D&D not players.
Coffee hating and tea hating.
Don't bring all that up.
Wait, you hate tea as well?
No.
Oh, I hate tea.
Oh, but you're American. I mean, Zach's British. He's genetically predisposed to liking tea.
Yeah, I'll be torn to shreds if that gets out, but I don't like tea.
But you don't like tea, you just don't want it to get out.
I definitely like tea, just to be clear.
He does not look very convincing. Look at his camera right here. Look at that. Does that look very convincing?
I love tea. And fish and chips. I love fish and chips.
I'm okay with fish and chips,
Chips is great.
but tea is just hot garbage water. It's like
Yeah.
here's hot water and a little bag of dirt.
But coffee's just as bad.
Oh, I don't like coffee either, so you won't get any argument from me there.
So there you go, Zach. You're among like company.
What was the other thing we brought up
There
earlier?
are dozens of you.
Oh, beer. Don't like beer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the lighting team is German. About half of us are German, so that was a controversial one as well. I mean, I feel like we've kind of showed. I can just keep going, or we can do something else.
Oh, well, we've got about, what, 15 minutes left? What
Yeah,
can you do
we
in
could try
15
some
minutes?
like different color schemes, maybe like without going too far into it, but like just swap around like the primaries and secondaries.
We can
See
do
what other
that.
kind of moods we can get.
We can do that, or no, let's do that. I was going to say, or we could just add all the lights and
Just
show
keep adding
people-
lights until,
just keep adding lights
until
we
the
make-
engine crashes, and then as soon as that happens, we're done.
That was me. If you were wondering what that sound was, that was me like having that one of those little angel and devil arguments, on one on each shoulder. It's like how I really just want to crash the engine. It's like I'm in a very subversive mood today.
It's been a little crash happy with me the last couple of days, so we're doing well that it hasn't crashed yet in the stream.
It's behaving very well. So we don't want to anger it too much.
All right, so we got 15 minutes. We'll ask the chat. Chat, if we were to create another mood, what other mood? Let us look at your sexy time. Put your sexy time on there. Let us see your
Oh,
sexy
crap.
time. Did you just mess up the sexy time?
Yeah, we're going back. Here we
Oh,
go.
The power of
Okay.
undo. Yeah.
There we
Yeah, that's a way to crash it.
Yeah, so we've got our sexy time here. What other mood should we get? Can we do a red alert?
Yeah, we can do that.
It's do red alert in the hab. What is an emergency lighting state for a hab look like?
Yeah.
Everything's
Go, like,
red.
submarine red. Just
Absolutely.
red on red on red.
Disco mood. You just saw disco mood. Look, it's out there. What is going on with my hair today? This is. I took a shower this morning and then didn't do anything with it. That's what that is.
Red. Wow. Yes. There's a
Starting to
new.
look a little more S&M club rather than sensual sexy times.
It reminds me of the prison habs. Oh, I'm in the wrong level. But the prison habs have kind of a nice alternate light state that leans on red.
Emergency sexy time.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, there we go.
And now, yeah, here we go.
There you go.
I don't like the red and the blue though.
Yeah, red and blue is very it's very Star Wars 789 kind of vibes.
Mm.
I always go back to Superman.
Superman 2.
The Superman 2 is all right. I prefer Superman though. Superman 2 did have Kneel Before Zod though. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Planet Houston. There were years where every time somebody would bring up Houston, I'd be like, Planet Houston. Nobody knew what the heck I was talking about.
How many years
there you go.
before it
Whoa,
wore
what
off?
was that? What did you just do there?
That was me accidentally, instead of clicking this slider perfectly to input a value, clicking and dragging and then setting the light value at 27,000
Yeah,
like a
several
professional.
suns worth of intensity.
So you're saying that just adding more light is not the answer to these situations?
Not always. Not always.
Just more
Sometimes.
light.
Sometimes you have to go too far before you realize how good you had it before.
Oh yeah. No, it's actually a very common refrain in many aspects of game development. It's you bring it to the point of excess, and then you bring it back
Yeah,
to the point.
and then you start dialing it back.
You start dialing it back down, because if you just keep if you just keep building and building and building and building, you never know if you've gotten where you need to be. You know, you never got to know if you've gotten
you might
as good as you
accidentally
can
go
be.
past the line.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You have to go past the line. You have to find the line, and then you come back to just before it, and that's how you know that you've pushed something as far as it can go.
Yeah.
If you
That's
never
definitely-
find that line.
That's definitely Ian, our art director's approach to fog. It's constantly get more fog in there.
I'm messaging Ian right now.
Yep, get him in here.
Hey, Ian, you hear the shit Zach
Oh, God.
said on
That's your one,
today's
Jared.
show?
Yeah. As promised, everything is red.
Red.
Almost.
Almost there. Once we get there, Zach, could you do me one favor and add like a really nice, strong, bright, either white or red key light that like kind of casts a shadow and like either blinks or like flashes or like spins around. That would be cool.
Oh my god, yes. I don't know how to do it spinning around off the top of my head, but you can talk me through it and do a live
Just rotate the monitor.
tutorial. Just manually rotate it.
Exactly. That's the secret. It's like that Simpsons joke where I can't remember, someone was talking about animating live, like if the animated show was a live broadcast, and they said no, that would be a terrible strain on the animator's wrists.
Didn't they do something though? That they did something where like 3 minutes of it was like voice acted live. I thought The Simpsons did an episode where like one section of it was supposedly like the voice was voice acted live.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think The Simpsons has probably tried just about everything at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen an episode of The Simpsons since like the 5th season. Whenever they shot Mr. Burns, and
yeah, that's when you gave up.
Yeah.
That was the line for you.
Yeah, it was before the movie was out. I've never seen the movie.
It was pretty good. I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I think
like
the movie
Simpsons, I
was
just fell
better
off.
than it had any right to be. Shots fired at Simpsons.
Yeah, spoiler alert, they shot Mr. Burns.
Wow.
Spoiler alert from what was that, like 1994, 1995?
I
Somewhere around
no
there.
idea. When you get to be my age, it all just blurs.
We go from the back towards the door.
Absolutely. Yeah, so there should be, I think down in the options, there's like a angular speed setting. It's down under the general options or under the animation settings.
It's trying to read like a list of values under pressure. Angular speed. Whoa.
That's the one. Yeah, something like 500 to 1,000.
Go ahead, turn it back on.
And then you got to find the right rotational axis.
How do you? What, you just have to spin it around
I
until
think
you
you just
get
have
the
to
right.
spin it. Yeah. So I think you want to spin it on Y, like 90 degrees, to get it to go horizontally.
So
There you
much
go, there it is.
confusion. Oh, was
There
that
you
it?
go.
I went straight
That's it.
past it. There we go. Boop. Oh, yes.
There you go.
It's panic-inducing, as it should
Yeah.
be.
Now make it red.
Surely that's too much. And much
Brighter.
brighter.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, Jesus.
Maybe too much red.
That's not what you want to wake up to, is it?
No.
I love how the white is washing out the red as it passes over.
Yeah.
It's always my absolute favorite thing in all of game dev is when something works exactly like you would expect it to in real life. It's like when you do that, it's like, hey, that's just like it should be.
It's just how I expect it to be.
Yeah, it's just how you expect it to be, which is such a weird thing because it's like I think so much of game dev is actually striving for just that. It's like if we're doing it right, it shouldn't seem weird or different to you. It shouldn't seem
exactly.
impressive. It should just seem like
it's
that's how
a
it should
beautiful
be.
moment when it works. Yeah. There you go.
It's not as good when it doesn't cast those nice long
Yeah, you got to
shadows.
get the nice shadows across the wall. That's where it, really sings. That's a lot of the general pipeline that we do as well. Like we just stick a big bright key light in the scene and find what looks good from what angle, where you get the nicest shadows, and then kind of build it out from there.
And we always, every time, then add a fixture that light should be emitted from.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we tell the environment art people to be like, okay, now make it actually fit into the environment.
It's one of those
Because that's where the light's going to go.
cart before the horse things. You
Exactly.
guys come in, you try to work with what's there, and then you get
Yeah.
to a point where it's like, I really want a light right here. It's like, this looks so good if I could have a light right here. And you have to go back to the environment guys and be like,
Oh, I didn't know you could do
Yeah,
that.
pretty please. Yeah,
This
there you go.
does feel very Star Wars as well.
try making it a gold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah.
Now it's Iron Man's workshop.
I give it like a flash, give it like a style of 2 is like the crazy flash, I think.
Oh, yes.
Now what happens if you push the button? Is it gonna like gracefully go back to the default state, or have we completely pantsed it? That's not too bad. It's a little
Not bad.
It's a little
It's a little weird.
Yeah. That red to pink
Oh.
transition doesn't feel so good, but
No. And it's really slow.
Womp,
Yeah.
womp.
Yeah.
oh, we can finesse that later. We'll show it to Ian, see what he thinks.
Ship it. Just ship it.
Yes, well, show it to Ian and be like, "This Zach made this today," and after the message I just sent him, he'll have a really great opinion of Zach.
I'm going to need
can
to do
try and,
some
like-
work on my...
We can try and
Oh.
like hide a button somewhere in the hab, something secret where if you push it, then this is what you get.
Hey,
Absolutely.
you get. Is there a limit to the number of light states?
Yeah, unfortunately, the light groups only handle technically 4 states, so like off, default, auxiliary, and emergency, because the feature was initially designed for ships specifically. So even though like the nomenclature of auxiliary and emergency doesn't always match up to what we're doing with the light states, we're kind of bound by those 4 states for now.
Cool. Well, that's it, gentlemen. We did it.
Yeah, right on time. Nice.
Yeah, we did it. Thank you so much for taking the time and hanging out with us. Zach, this is your first any kind of video for us.
It is.
How'd it
It's been
feel?
a pleasure. Very
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Still want to work here?
Well, if I'm allowed to after this, after you've called me out to Ian on several things.
Oh wait, Ian's responded. Are you kidding? Sorta. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. This has been Star Citizen Live. We are still on our ISC hiatus, but we'll be back here with another episode of Star Citizen Live next week for the lighting team. It's Chris, and that's Zach, and I'm Hare. I'm realizing I don't look at myself very often. I'm like, I got to do something about this soon. I'll talk to you later, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Da 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 da.